Carlson heaving one down the sideline, and he's got Kessler over the top. Big side down the sideline. Touchdown. His signature move and his signature performance. Allen, big ball one more time. 58 yards this time.
You're listening to the Bruin Bible. This is your host, Will Decker, bringing you UCLA football content all throughout the year for LA Football Network.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker, your host. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing the podcast. We are brought to you guys today by our advertisers. Our advertisers are Bell to Bell Fitness, Jay Toia, a realtor out in Arizona, former Bruin alum, and my main man, Howard Chang, a realtor right here in Los Angeles. Let's go through them, guys. Bell to Bell Fitness is a boxing gym on the West Coast used by their FIT acronym, Fight Inspired Training. My main man, Tony Gonzalez, was the boxing coach for UCLA for over 10 years. He has built this gym on the West Side to learn how to boxing, stay in shape, and get you all the essentials you need to become somebody that is obsessed with boxing and fitness. Make sure to check it out. Go into Bell to Bell Fitness and say you heard about it from the Bruin Bible, and you're going to get a free session with Tony Gonzalez. So make sure to check that out. Jay Toia, my main man. Jay Toia is a licensed real estate agent in Arizona and a lifelong Bruin. He's a current Wooden Athletic Fund donor and football season ticket holder. When not selling houses or going to UCLA games, he loves to travel the country, checking out different arenas, ballparks, and stadiums. If you're looking to make the move to Arizona or know someone who is, please reach out to our loyal friend, Mr. Jay Toia. His phone number is 602-487-3975. Once again, his number is 602-487-3975. Make sure to check that out. And then the local realtor we got out here, Howard Chang. Howard Chang is a local realtor with the Serene team at eXp Realty. Their team has an office right here in Culver City, though they help clients buy and sell homes all over the LA County and the surrounding areas. Howard and his team do a ton of business and are super in tune with the market, knowing winning strategies to give their clients a competitive advantage, have amazing vendor referrals, are a one-stop shop for anything real estate, and just provide a ton of value for their clients. Howard and his partner, Kyle Draper, are UCLA alums and a huge fans of the UCLA football and basketball programs. You often see them at games, tailgating and networking and staying involved with the UCLA alumni community. They would love to help any fellow alumni with accomplishing their real estate goals. So if you guys have any real estate needs in the LA area, look no further. Howard is your guy. All right, guys, we're going to go into the episode. Wayne Cook here today. Make sure to check it out. We'll be back in just a moment. What is up, and welcome to the latest edition of the Bruin Bible. Monday night. You guys asked for it. We deliver. Cook crossover once again. I got the main man, Wayne Cook, in the house. We were both out at the Friday Night Lights practice this past weekend. What a time that was. We're going to dive into that, and what a recruiting advantage that is for UCLA moving forward. We got maybe some news about a big-name player that entered his name in the portal and is, maybe sniffing around, maybe coming back. There's an opportunity he may come back to UCLA. I don't want to get fans' hopes up, but there's an opportunity there where he can potentially come back to UCLA. And then we're going to start with, the big news of the day, man. We got a new offensive guard coming to UCLA from a D1 program. But before we get into all that, Wayne Cook, how are you doing on this Monday evening as we talk about some UCLA football? The best time.
I'm awesome, Will. And it's funny because we saw each other at Friday Night Lights, and I think you feel the same way I do. It was a really, really fun night. I mean, for me being a former player, I was cracking up. I mean, I walk out there, I get the facilities early because, believe it or not, and who knew after all the years I've driven to LA, driving the direction I was coming on Friday was not bad. Everybody was going home, and everybody was leaving LA, and I was coming to LA. So I got up there really quickly, and so I got to kind of just hang around the athletic department. And it was awesome because Coach Foster and his staff welcomed parents. They had a nice meet and greet and questions and some really good stuff with Martin and Sean and all the staff. I got to talk to some of the players. And again, overwhelmingly, I think we're saying that I'm not telling you anything inside here, but we're hearing the players talk about how cool this is. They're still working hard. They're still practicing hard. There's still old school football happening, but with the excitement that I think that it just makes football is so hard that if you don't have any fun playing it, it's miserable. And you have to find ways to have fun. And I know that, whether it's music at practice or all the things we do that we didn't do when I was a kid, we had fun, but we found ways to joke around. We found ways to laugh. We found ways to be mature and work hard, but also have a great time. And I think these coaches get that, and they want the players to have fun, but they hold them to a high standard too. And so when you see an event like this, it's like, listen, we're going to have a whole bunch of people on the field, parents, alumni. I ran into my college roommate. I didn't even know he was coming. Brian Jacobs, offensive lineman for UCLA in the 90s, just sitting there. And I'm like, what the heck are you doing here? Well, he's friends with Fina's dad, who also lives out in that Valencia area. And so they came together, and it was like a reunion. And then you just keep, it was hard for me to watch practice, believe it or not. I had to escape and go hide in a corner so I could watch a little bit because there was so much excitement. There were players being recruited. We're going to talk about a possible transfer that I bumped into, which is hilarious because that's the player that just committed to UCLA. And we had a great funny little moment on the sidelines watching the big guys practice. I always go down and watch the big guys practice because it's so much fun. But it was an awesome event. It was a great atmosphere. And we're going to get into it a little bit later. I know before the show, before we started recording, we didn't mention it, but I do also want to talk about the quarterback play before we get off the air today, because not only did I like what I saw, but I also liked what Coach Foster said afterwards. So those are all things, but it was a great night. It was such an exciting night. And I hope that we can repeat it or even make something better out of what happens on Saturday. I think there's an opportunity, and this is going to sound stupid, and I don't want to be petty, but there is an opportunity to show up the guys on the other side of town, because I watched a little bit of that on TV, and it didn't look very spectacular at all. It just, so like, if we're gonna be fair and we're gonna take these pictures of stadiums the way that people love to do it to try to shame schools the way that happens, we have to be fair about how we do that. And one last thing, Will, that I want to point out too, because I have lots of time to think about this stuff before you invite me on the show, which is fun, is how much I appreciate right now. And this is, I'm almost positive, it feels like there's a concerted effort and a dedicated effort by not just Coach Deshaun Foster, but the rest of the staff to be actively involved in social media in a very, very positive way. This program has needed an injection of positivity. It needs not only its coaches, all the personnel in the athletic department. It needs its fans. It needs the people that are doing podcasts like you and me. Believe it or not, we live in a social media age. If all you see and hear is negativity coming from everybody, it's not going to be good enough. I don't want to hear about how we don't have enough money. I don't want to hear about how we just can't. I don't like that. I want to talk about what we can do, and I want to be really positive about it. And that's what I'm seeing from this new staff, is a ton of positivity, and good things are happening. And I think that's really exciting. And so it starts with practices. It starts with the guys working hard and having fun, but it also starts with everybody around the program kind of bringing that positive energy, because I truly believe it matters.
It totally does. And, Friday night was a perfect example of that. Mm-hmm. Food trucks were out there. I got myself some of these nice donuts they had with some of the, vanilla ice cream there. It's kind of like a cheat day for me out there, just getting some good food. Ran to a bunch of great fans. A lot of people, talking about the show. It was very flattering. It was a very cool event for the fan base. But, look at the recruits. 100+ recruits out there. Has there ever been an event like that UCLA's had outside of like a spring game or an actual game experience, Wayne?
So it just feels like and again, I know Deshaun's brought it up, so I feel like I can bring it up too. He keeps bringing up the fact that, he played it, he was at the end of the Cade McNown era, the end of the 20-win straight. He was a part of that group that did nothing but beat USC. And he talks about how he played in an era where the Rose Bowl was full a lot.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't want to hear that it can't be that again, because he's seen it. And so I love that. I also know that we grew up in an era, and man, you can go back and look, and maybe people can check my stats, but I remember us being top 10 a lot in recruiting classes. So when you had those 80s teams that were winning Rose Bowls, 3 and 4 years. And then you had the Troy Aikman years, 87 and 88. Even though the Brett Johnson era was short and not, as good as we wanted it to be, Brett Johnson was him and Todd Marinovich were the two biggest quarterbacks in California. I mean, these were big time recruits. We recruited top 10 and at worst top 20 every year. And we had just great class after great class, and we recruited all over the country. And there's no reason why UCLA can't still do that. The environment hasn't changed. Southern California is still awesome. But let me get to your actual question. They're offering a lot more people. And we all know how this works. You can't take everybody you offer. And so, at the end of the day, there's going to be tough decisions to have to make. But wouldn't it be great to have too many people that want to come to your school as opposed to not getting enough and then trying to fill holes in others' ways? Because that to me is, you want to go out and try and land the best talent that you can land. And these kids want to get offers. They love to post on social media how many schools are offering them. I mean, we all see those posts all the time. Or you want to see the guy that puts the picture of themselves up and there's like 50 schools that are offering them. Yeah. Well, I know that I guarantee you see this and I see this too. And all UCLA fans, we like seeing UCLA on those pictures for the 4 and 5 star recruits, because that means we're in the game. For too many years, it was like, well, that's an SC guy and SC's on the list, but UCLA wasn't. And part of the reason might have been academics. Part of the reason might have been something else. But who cares? We can figure that stuff out. We're going to offer these kids, and then we're going to try and get them in. And again, I'm not an administrator, so I don't know if that's exactly what's happening. But it is, they've turned the dial up on recruiting a lot, and I love it. And players are having a blast. They're absolutely having a blast. I mean, all the players that are coming around practice are all saying the same thing. There's a great staff. They're having a ton of fun every time they visit, and every time they leave there, they are absolutely impressed.
Yeah, man, it's been really, really fun to watch that play out. And the thing you got to think about with this event, the Friday Night Lights event, one, just a lot of credit to Deshaun Foster for trying to put together an event that just was not there, trying to get recruits out with Chip. And, this is not an anti-Chip, podcast segment or anything like that. But, there was a lot of guys that we felt like we could have gotten had Chip put in a little extra work with, Mason Graham, the guy at Michigan, a couple other guys around there. With Foster, he's not only putting that effort in, but he's putting it in a cool way for these kids to come out to campus and see the event. It was just an atmosphere. And you got to imagine, this is the first iteration of this Friday Night Lights practice. What's it going to look like in 2-3 years from now when this thing is going to be even bigger and better? So it's just a lot of fun to see that from our guy and Deshaun. And man, it was a blast out there, Wayne. It was totally cool. We got to commit with our guy, Alani Makihele, coming from UNLV. This guy looks like a stud. Started all 13 games last year for the Running Rebs as a guard spot. Legitimate defensive Division I offensive lineman. This guy was a beast on so many different fronts. Graded out at like a 72 on PFF. Played over 800 snaps in the starting lineup for the Rebs last year. One of the biggest key facts for UCLA coming into the transfer portal was, hey, we got to bulk up these lines, not only for depth, but maybe add some starters here as well. They did that, with this guy coming in there, and they might not be done. On the surface, what do you see from this guy? Because I have a lot of faith that Makihele is going to be a great, great addition to UCLA moving forward.
So it's funny. So, Will, I'm walking around, and I see this gigantic human being standing next to some of our recruiting people. And I swear, I hate that I do this, but I freaking feel like I'm the mayor out there sometimes, because I walk around, I shake everybody's hand. I'm all over the field. I don't like to stay in one place. And it's just so, and I'm not doing it because I think I'm anything special. I'm doing it because it's fun. I absolutely love it. I love the access that I have. And to be honest with you, that former players have, because it's not, trust me, it's not just me. He's really given access to us. And when you see all these recruits and these young people, and you're talking to coaches from high schools, and you're talking to kids, and you're talking to all these different people around, and then you see this like mountain of a man. And I don't know if everybody's seen the post of him walking, holding a bag.
Yeah.
And you just look at that dude's arms, and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy he's like, he doesn't look like he's as tall as he is. I think they list him at 6'3", but he's freaking square. and he's ripped. I mean, absolutely ripped. But here's the funny thing. So I shake his hand and I introduce myself, and I'm like, who are you out here watching? Like, who are you watching? He's like, oh, I'm like, and then there's someone said, well, no, he's from UNLV. I'm like, who are you watching? Like, who are you watching? Like, which one's your kid or your nephew or whatever? He's like, no, I played at UNLV. I'm a transfer. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I go, you look like you're 40 years. I mean, he looks like an absolute grown man. I mean, he doesn't look like he is. He doesn't look 18. He doesn't look 19. He looks like a guy that's played some college football and has been around for a while. And he's absolutely he's stout. He's just listening to him talk and interact with other people, you can just feel that he's UCLA quality, like as far as a person. And it was just a weird thing. It was a weird moment, and I'm the idiot that has no clue who I'm even talking to. And I think I might have insulted him for acting like he was older than he really was. But like, I love that. I mean, when you can get grown men to come into your program and step in, and as you pointed out, Will, add depth. I do think we have some solid starters on this team. But I love, and I'll say this for the rest of my life, and I know Deshaun Foster agrees with this too, because I've heard him say it. If you don't have competition at these positions and there's nobody pushing you to be better, every year I played quarterback, I always knew they were going to bring in someone else to try to beat me out. I knew it. So if you don't have people pushing you, and now, there's only 5 guys that can start. And we don't know what's going to happen with rotations anymore, by the way. I always thought that, like, it's funny because when I played, offensive linemen kind of played like the majority of the game. There wasn't a whole bunch of rotating on O-line. It's weird. And I always thought that as times progress, there's more and more rotation of players because the game's faster. We won more plays. Like, there's a lot going on. But, like, typically you knew you're starting 5, and those guys played the majority of the game unless they got hurt. It was kind of an every stat position. I know things have changed a little bit, but you still have to have depth. You always want people pushing you. If you have people pushing you, it makes you a better player. So I think this will only help. And I'm going to be honest, I know they're going after some other offensive linemen too. So I know there's a recruit out there that's an Arkansas kid, and I don't know if he's signed already or not. But, like, I know there's some people that they're looking at. So hopefully we can add some more depth.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of great people. Andrew Chamblee is the guy that we would potentially be looking at with that. He was an all-SEC freshman team selection as a left tackle at Arkansas. So that just says the pedigree of this guy to be all-SEC as a true freshman out there. So Chamblee would be the next target when it comes to that. Is there any other position groups you want to buff on and add depth to as we get closer and closer to opening day in Hawaii for UCLA?
Yeah, I mean, I still think, I don't feel, I swear, I've been so impressed with the defense. I've been so impressed with what Coach Malloy is doing. I feel really good about our secondary. You guys, we've talked about that before. I think, with as many edge rushers as we lost, we talked about Busick last week, and I thought he looked solid. I talk about Swessinger at linebacker, who I think really helps things because that lets them move Femi around where he can play more than one position. He might put his hand in the dirt, but I still think if there's an available edge, I think that's a position that you can go after. I can be honest with you, like with DBs, like if you have an opportunity to grab a good corner, like ever, you do. Like you do. Like I think you do. And it doesn't mean the guys you have right now aren't going to start. But that position is so, like, you don't ever want to have those seasons where you lose a corner and the next corner is not good enough. So there's things that you look for. I still, I've been impressed with the running backs. I think one of the running backs, is it Isaiah Carlson? I'm not looking at the list right now. Carlson. Like, he really, every time I see him, the body just looks like he's a running back. So I'm intrigued by him. We know we have TJ and Keegan. But, we also brought in another San Diego State recruit at fullback, which is cool because, the old-fashioned guy in me likes seeing that every once in a while. I think there's things that you can do. There was a time when the tight end was kind of a dying breed, and now it's one of the most hot positions at any level because we've turned the tight end into more of a big athletic receiver type. It's kind of like when they went from playing in the post all the time and then the NBA to where everybody was a stretch 4 and a stretch 5. Now we have tight ends that stretch the field, and it's totally changed the game. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't be surprised to see an era where big athletic fullbacks, and I think they already are starting this, but start to make a comeback in the game because there's so many ways you can utilize them. So I think that might be a sneaky good pickup as well to really help an offense that's kind of already loaded.
Yeah, so many, we've talked about it so many different times where it's the wide receiver room, as talented as we've seen it. Yes, the Habermill, injury hurt, but Matavao is more than qualified to be a very, very good tight end in Big Ten play. I think this is the point. Yeah, keep going.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I wanted to say this too. I had a chance to talk to Hudson Habermill, and I just want everybody to know this. Like, that dude is going to be fine. We may not see him as a football player next year, but man, he's already thinking about his comeback. He's the nicest person you'll ever want to meet. Hudson is, he's just one of those people that that no matter what he's doing, he's going to persevere. And there's a lot of guys like this on this team. So it made me feel better because it broke my heart to watch him get hurt because I already liked him enough. And he's really, really good player. And he's just like, yeah, I'm going to get after it. I'm going to rehab. I'm going to do my thing. And I'll be back for, another year. And I love hearing that because as a person that's gone through some injuries myself, you can't get through it if you're a doom and gloom guy. You just have to almost block out the negativity and just say, you know what, I'm going to come back and I'm going to be fine. And he's going to be that. So, but I should have said this a second ago when you asked me about positions. That does leave a hole at tight end.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That leaves a hole at tight end. So we're going to have to figure out a way to maybe find, and there's some people I've been noticing, there's some tight ends out there. So that might be a position of interest too, to add another tight end. But I agree with you. Maliki's, he's really good. Like we had 2 really good. And again, the other guys are going to have to work their butts off to become, like, you got to prove it, right? I'm not saying the other guys aren't good, but I haven't seen it yet. So now it's their turn to step up and fill in and make the coaches maybe think, hey, maybe we don't need to go, find this. Maybe we've already got it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to look forward to in the portal and what they could potentially bring in. I know you want to talk about some of the quarterback play that you saw not only on Friday Night Lights, but, with some of the spring practices. Talk to me about what you're seeing in the quarterback room, man, because you having played the position, knowing that area so well, my ears perk up every time you talk about the quarterback position, man. So let it loose.
Well, this is a couple of things because we had an event for alumni at the Rose Bowl not that long ago, and we were allowed to ask questions. And of course, because I'm a dork quarterback, I was like, so what do you think about the quarterback position? And I think that, Ethan Garbers is underrated, and I don't think he's getting enough credit. And to my kind of like, I get it now, but the answer I got wasn't what I wanted. I didn't get Wayne, you're so smart. You're right. You know what you're talking about. He basically talked about how we want our quarterbacks to be leaders on and off the field. We want the whole picture. And I think it's almost like when you talk to GMs about why quarterbacks sometimes make it, sometimes don't. It's never just talent. We could break down the NFL draft that's coming up as much as we want, and it's never just talent. There's little things that some quarterbacks have, the great ones, that you can't teach. It's something about the way they handle their leaders of men. They're great. They're great on the field. When they go home, you don't have to worry about them. You don't have to worry about them driving 110 miles an hour or getting a DUI or both combined. You don't have to worry about them getting into things that they're not supposed to be getting into. Now, have there been great quarterbacks that have had some, the Ben Roethlisbergers of the world, and that happens sometimes. I agree with that. But for the most part, what you really want is someone that's killing it on both on and off the field. And I kind of, when I sat back and reflected on that answer, I kind of went, because that was kind of what my story was early on in my career. I had to grow up. I went from being a third string player to being the guy that was going to replace Tommy Maddox in one offseason. And I was kind of like, wow, I'm struggling to pass my classes. I'm not holding up my end of the bargain off the field. On the field and in practice, I was great. But off the field, I wasn't doing my job. And by the way, I'm not saying this is any of our quarterbacks right now, But what he was trying to do was make sure every single quarterback knew that that quarterback position was open. And I'm watching everything you do. And so I'm telling you this backstory for a reason, because on Friday Night Lights, I thought, like, if someone asks me what's the difference you see in the quarterbacks, and by the way, if Luke or Justin or Chase, and Chase is actually really good at this too, but Ethan throws the ball on time and is accurate more often than any other guys by far. I actually don't even think it's that close. I just think his decision-making and getting the ball out quick, which we've seen a couple times gets him in trouble. Like last year, a couple of his interceptions. He didn't throw many, but a couple of them were not because he went, oh no, what do I do? He's like, this is my decision and I'm getting rid of the ball. And it just didn't work out. I would rather have a quarterback that does that than a person that holds the ball too long. And so for those other quarterbacks, and it was funny because I was talking to, there was a lot of really prominent, I was talking to Charles Arbuckle and David Shaw. Yeah. That was my group. I mean, I'm sitting there talking to Arbuckle and David Shaw, and we're just talking about like little things that we see. And we talk about receivers getting separation. That's a big deal. It's not your 40 time. It's, do you get separation? How do you run routes? How do you read defense? Do you know how to settle? Do you know how to run away from a man defender? Like, and some guys have that. Quarterbacks, it's the same thing. If you watch a quarterback that holds onto the ball too long and then tries to big arm everything, those guys never make it. The higher you get up, the DBs are way too good. You've got to be quick with your decisions and processing and get it out. So here's the end of the story. So Ethan had another really good practice. He's spinning the ball. His one-on-one throws were great. You were there. I mean, he was just good. He was good all night. And then we get to the press conference, and Deshaun Foster said, Ethan's having a really good camp. It's the last week. I don't know if he did this on purpose, but I love it. He kind of, he wasn't saying a whole lot of that. And now all of a sudden he's like, listen, he's starting to really get it. He's stepping up. He's looking really good. And I don't know if it was a lot of praise, but it was enough for me to go, because that gets back to your quarterback. And believe it or not, we do have egos, us QBs.
Totally. Yeah.
And when we know we're the guy, there's a strut to us. And there's just something a little bit different about your swagger when you kind of know you're the guy. It doesn't mean you're relaxed. It doesn't mean you're overconfident. But I'm telling you, it does something inside your mind. And I truly believe when you feel like you're the guy and you're the leader of the team, you can actually make a huge jump forward. Right. Yeah. You can get better just because you have that confidence now. So I like that Deshaun threw that out. I also like that he kind of waited till the beginning of the last week to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, man. I think, especially with the new coaching staff, and I know Foster was there last year, you have a new offensive coordinator, new quarterbacks coach. Everything's open right now. Yeah. And you got some talented kids in that room with Justin Martin and Luke Duncan competing for that job. Yep. And, we got two more talented kids coming in the fall, with Carson Cox and the Hasselback kid who's, uncle and dad both played professionally in the NFL. So a lot of talent coming into that room. So, I agree with you on the front that, praise, it can be a detriment to progress in a way. You kind of want to string them along. You don't want to spoon feed them, just say, hey, you did an awesome job out there. You got to get on them a little bit. And, for anyone that's been watching practice, we all know Garbers is QB1. But it's nice to kind of hear that from Deshaun, where he's kind of stringing him along, making him earn everything he gets, and I think that's a fair element for what Deshaun's bringing.
And just really quickly, too, because with Bieniemy out there, it was a really funny moment because I've told you this because you know that he's going to tell Ethan exactly what he thinks, right?
Oh, yeah.
And everybody else, including the alumni and the former players. It was a really funny moment for all of us that love Eric Bieniemy, and we do. I've been pretty bad. I kind of been trickling out behind the play so I can get a good, and I've been told that it's okay. But because there were so many people, now I'm creeping out. The next thing I know, there's 50 people out on the field, and I'm like, oh, no. And it was awesome. But once Bieniemy looked back and goes, hey, you need all of you, get your butts off the field. So having a coach like that will help all these quarterbacks no matter what, because you're right. There is that fine line between the psychology of a kicker, right? Of anybody. Like, I even say this as a teacher. If I have a rotten kid and he gives me grief all the time and he's had a couple of good days in a row, I swear to you, as soon as I compliment that turd, he gets bad right afterwards. It's almost like he doesn't know how to handle it. So you have to be careful with your praise, right? You have to be careful with your praise.
Exactly. And kind of to touch back on your point before, the precision thing, getting in and out of your reads with Garbers, it's really solid, man. It's really, really solid. He has very good arm strength, control, ball placement. But what impresses me most is just how, poised he is in the huddle and the decision-making he has. He rarely makes a wrong decision in practice nowadays. And I know you've referenced Kurt Warner in the past. Purdy's my guy as a Niners fan. What we saw from him the second he came in was how he just progressed around the defense, was able to read everything that was going on. And it was a beautiful sight to watch, man. I think Garber's got a lot of those same traits as our guy Purdy has for the Niners.
Okay. You can't just drop a quarterback thing out there and have me not respond. So
I gotta hear it. Yeah.
I love Brock Purdy. And I love Brock Purdy because he's more athletic than you think, kind of like Garbers. Like, he can get out and move when he needs to. And I think we've seen that enough from him. He's not a stationary, he's not a guy that's a pocket statue. He's a guy that can move around a little bit. But you just nailed it. He processes the field the way you're supposed to. And what's crazy is, you mentioned Kurt Warner when he had the greatest show on turf. When you have Marshall Faulk and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce and all these guys running around the field, why would you want a quarterback running around and ad-libbing? Get the freaking ball to those guys and let them do their thing. If you've got Christian McCaffrey and the rest of the weapons and Debo and all these guys that you can get the ball to, why would you want a quarterback that's going to run around and make things difficult? Every play is run not for a scramble play. They run plays to actually work. That's why every play is called. It's supposed to work. And if you can move around and add stuff when it doesn't work, that's great. That's like a bonus. Most quarterbacks don't have both. They're either great runners or great throwers. If you're a great runner and a great thrower, you're special, right? You're unique. I mean, I would even argue that Patrick Mahomes isn't a great runner. He's an extremely good scrambler and an amazing thrower of the football. And he's just an awesome football player. He's an awesome football player. But my point to this is that guys like Brock Purdy can be, and even we watched it last year with C.J. Stroud as a freshman. I told everybody that listen, C.J. Stroud was my guy. I said on my other podcast, College Sports Now, I said it all year. They said, what about Bryce Young? I go, it's fine. I like Bryce, but he's a little small and he likes to move around a lot. And I go, C.J. hits his plant foot and gets rid of the ball. He had great weapons in college. Great. Yeah, he also got him the ball. That's what you're supposed to do. And then he goes into the NFL, and here's a guy that hits his plant foot and gets the ball out, and he's succeeding, right? We draft great receivers for a reason. We talked about how UCLA has such great receivers, right? We want a guy that can distribute the ball. Let's get it to everybody. Let's get the right run checks. Let's get to the right play. Let's be able to use your cadence. Like, if you can do that and just use all the talent around you and be a facilitator, I love it. I love the possibilities, and it's hard to do. I've always said this: you can have a running quarterback at young ages. And by the way, I'm not knocking running quarterbacks. I mean, that's great. They're fun to watch, but at some point, you have to be able to throw the ball at the higher levels, and so and you have to be able to do it accurately and well and to the right people, or else you're going to be limited. And because if you're too limited, you play great defenses, they will always be able to stop you. But if you're a guy that can use the whole field and read defenses, and offense should always win because you know where you're going. And if you have a really good quarterback that can run the show, man, it's so hard to stop.
Yeah, man. And that's why I think Bo Nix, we kind of just found him be the distributor since he got to Oregon. There's a potential there. If you put him in a similar system to what he was running at Oregon, he played distributor as well as anybody in college football over the past 2 years and what he was doing with the Ducks. My guy, Michael Penix, very similar, just strong arm talent, fun to watch as well. I'm wearing my Pac-12 shirt, in honor of the greatest conference right now. So I had to shout out those guys going into the league, as well as Caleb Williams, that kid across town, that the team we don't really like to talk about much on here. But let's finish off strong, Wade. Rumors are, so Jay Toia enters the portal on Friday. It's, met with profound sadness from the UCLA fan base. This kid's going to be a stud. We're really excited about him potentially breaking out this year for UCLA. And then, Deshaun has an interesting quote on Monday or on the Friday Night Lights practice. He goes, Monday's going to be an interesting day. I'm going to see what he says on Monday. we'll see what happens with this. And then I got, a quote from a source from the Wooden Athletic Fund. I cannot tell you guys obviously who that is, saying like, hey man, Jay is, kind of mulling his options about, seeing what's out there, but he also has a lot of love for UCLA and the door is not completely closed there. I don't want to give false hope or anything like that, but a lot of, the things he was telling me was, Jay has a lot of love for UCLA and wouldn't mind returning to UCLA if the dollar amount matches up with the current state of NIL. Talk to me about what this means for UCLA to be back in it on Jay Toia and how NIL has kind of changed the world of college football as a whole.
Yeah. So wow, what a good question. First of all, yeah, I cried a little bit when I heard about Jay. I mean, I was like, it's like, oh no.
Yeah,
I just love the guy so much. We had so much fun watching him last year. I even made a comment at one point in time when I thought he was going to be out for a while and he wasn't. He came back because he's so tough that he could be arguably the defensive player of the year because all those guys on the outside are getting single coverage because you have guys like, Jay Toia in the middle. And but I also come from the era is that if a player wants to leave, it's the next guy up. And I think all the coaches have felt this way too. Like, yeah, we'd love to have our brother with us, but if he's going to make a decision to go, we've got to move on. We've got guys that can play the position, and we're going to be just fine. And so it's really, really tricky. Like, I still hold out hope because this is one of the flaws with NIL. And again, I hate calling it NIL because it's not. It's pay for play. We're raising money through collectives and everybody's doing it across the country and you're paying players to come to your school, whether it's high school kids or transfers. There is tampering going on, which also shouldn't be allowed to happen, but there are people out there, just like there were agents getting involved in our lives when we played and people were getting stuff for free and, maybe driving a car that they didn't buy and stuff like that. That stuff's always happened and it's happened in a lot of places. But this is, talking to guys about, I'm not saying this is in the Jay Toia case. I'm talking about any school in America. But if you have guys that already know where they're going before they enter the transfer portal, you can assume there was tampering. There was people in their ears saying, hey, you can get this much money from this school. Also, one of the flaws, because and again, I'm not Ed O'Bannon. We went to school together, but I can't speak for him, but he was talking about if they're using my likeness on video games or if they're selling my jerseys in the Bruins, like I deserve a piece of the pie, and I totally agree. And if you're Ed O'Bannon and you just, you're a part of a national championship basketball team and you can make commercials, you should be allowed to. That to me is NIL. NIL is not, we'll come up with some stupid thing for you to do on social media, and then so they're going to eventually come up with ways to fix this. But here's the problem I want to get out with Jay. If you're a really good football player right now and you're, got a chance to be an All-American at a school across America that may not have as much money as the handful of schools that seem to have as much money as they want. And we all know that exists. There are a handful of schools that have so much money and they have boosters with big pockets. Like Oregon, for example, it just seems like if they want to spend money on a player, even if that player, like, for example, you can go out and offer Dante Moore a ton of money to be your backup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not all schools have enough money to give a ton of money to a guy that might not even play. So, like, it makes it's a totally uneven playing field. And then if you're having to be a really good player on a school where you're good enough to maybe go play at an elite school that has really deep pockets, you can be a free agent whenever you want.
Yeah.
If you were a great freshman, sophomore, junior, grad transfer, it doesn't matter. And I know the grad transfer thing's always been there, but now there's the money thing involved. So now what you do is you take a kid, a young man. We shouldn't call them kids, by the way. They're getting paid in a lot of cases, and they're over 18, so they're young men, and they're being stuck in a situation where there's an opportunity to make a big amount of money. And there's also this opportunity of maybe not making as much, but being loyal and sticking with your guys. And, like transfers were much more rare when I played. They still happen. But we're taught in sports, like you gotta, it's like going to war with these guys.
Yeah.
You're in meetings every freaking day. You go through, like in our day, Hell Week and spring practice when I first started was 20 practices, and everything about football was hard. It was just freaking hard. And so if a teammate was like, I'm out, we would be like, huh? Like, I get some people, but like it was very hard. So now I feel like what's happening is players are more understanding, but I think we're putting these young athletes in a very difficult situation. And I think the rules have set this up. I mean, I just can't even imagine, like, as we go through this and more people get comfortable, like the Alabamas of the world, the Georgias of the world, players are going to be like, okay, here's the deal. It's going to be like a holdout. Either you pay me more money or I'm going somewhere else to get more money. And you see what I'm getting at? And it's like, that is so unhealthy, especially if it's now because of our wonderful courts, who I honestly am convinced do not care about kids at all. They don't care about college and how good an education is. And I really don't. It bothers me a little bit. But the idea that these players, and again, I don't want to sound like an old person here that doesn't get it, but unlimited free agency, there is not one league out there where anybody's getting paid that has less rules than college football does.
I know.
It's like a free-for-all. It's absolutely insane. And there's a ton of really smart people out there think, oh, there's just no way we can fix it. I'm like, there's a way to fix this. And they're going to have to figure it out, because every school is going to deal with this. Every school is going to play with really good players. And by the way, it's tricky, isn't it, Will? Because when we get someone from, let's say, Notre Dame, I'm like, man, I love this thing. Woo! We just had an awesome receiver or a great defensive end or whatever. But when you lose someone, it's like, oh, the system sucks. I hate this. But in reality, in the big picture, some of the stuff that's happening right now is cool. I do like that there's more money going to athletes, but there has to be a better way to do it. It's really, really tricky. And by the way, asking fans and alumni and former players for more money is also really hard. It's a hard ask. It really is. Like, if you're a billionaire business person and you got money to spare, it's one thing. But if you're an 8th grade middle school teacher, like the guy you're talking to, it's not the same. It's tricky. So I don't know. I just rambled forever, and I'm not trying to get in trouble. I agree with our coaches, by the way. And I want to end with this. We're playing under the rules that we have right now. And so we're going to do the best we can under the rules we have right now. And I think that is the only way to handle this. Chip Kelly, you could tell, was kind of like, he wasn't really buying into the whole, all these changes, I don't think. And I think that's why he wanted to go back to being a position coach, to be honest with you. I think Deshaun and this staff are like, listen, guys, these are the rules. We don't even have to talk about whether we like them or not. We're going to do the best we can under the parameters that we have to deal with. And I think that's awesome. And I think that's the way you have to do it.
Yeah, man. It's an adjustment for everybody. We need to work out NIL. It's far from a finished product. Yeah. But, you got to adapt to the times, man. And UCLA is adapting with the times, which is encouraging to see. Wayne, always so much fun to do this with you, buddy. Thank you for coming on. We're going to have another Bruin Bible later this week. Any parting thoughts before we get out of here? And maybe encouraging people to come to the spring game on Saturday at the Rose Bowl.
I think we have an opportunity. And I know you guys don't get this, but this is recruiting. And so in the world we live in, there's going to be a ton of recruits. There's going to be possible transfers. There's going to be there's a lot of stuff going on. The environment last Friday was absolutely incredible. And I truly believe it's helping a ton. We need to get out to the Rose Bowl. I don't know who's on the list. I know that there's going to be a lot of cool activities, including a bunch of former players that are going to be kind of separated by decade, to where you can come down and maybe get autographs from the current players, which of course matter more. And then if you get bored with the current players, you can come find some of us old guys, and there'll probably be some good ones down there on the field. It's going to be an awesome day. And I hope we have a really, really good showing, because it matters. We want people to think we're changing the narrative of what UCLA football is right now. It's an exciting place, and people want to be a part of something awesome. And I think we're going in that direction.
I love it, man. Wayne, you are the best. Thank you for coming on. Pack the Rose Bowl on Saturday, guys. The inaugural spring game in the Deshaun Foster era is going to commence. I want to see everybody out there. Bruin Bible, we are officially out. Talk to you guys very, very soon.